In this video you will find all the answers to the typical questions like a comparison, for example, with public transportation, what is the cost of renting a car, what rental company works best, what level of insurance you need, scams, petrol station, is it easy to drive around, how is the local traffic, and so much more. Well, let's start straight away with a full comparison between renting a car and taking public transportation. First off, you will find an amazing network of highways and secondary roads here in Germany, something that will make your life so much easier to drive around. Obviously also the public network transportation is awesome, it's well known all around the world and works best actually if you want to have a no worries experience, you don't want to drive, you don't want to stress finding parking, or maybe you're just used to drive on the left side and you feel insecure driving on the right side like we do here in Germany. But let me tell you one thing, public transportation is perfect and it works fantastically well, but mostly when you go from city to city. If you want to visit, for example, the famous Neuschwanstein Castle, you know, the Walt Disney Castle, which is not too far off from Munich, you will need about 5 to 6 hours if you take public transportation. Meanwhile, with a car, it's an easy trip there. So train works perfectly well from city to city, but not that good when you go more into the countryside. Another thing to keep in mind is that public transportation is actually expensive in Germany, and cost-wise, definitely renting a car is cheap when you travel with a partner or with a family or group of friends. And to be honest with you, the Germans driving are so polite and easygoing that you won't feel stressed when driving on the German roads. So overall, if you're planning an itinerary through the major cities like Munich, Berlin, Hamburg, then public transportation works best because you jump on a train, you sit, relax, and you arrive to the next destination. But if you want to experience more of the real Germany, then rent a car. All airports in Germany have car rental offices, and usually you find them outside the customs. Some of the providers don't work inside the airport, but they offer free shuttle to take you to the rental office outside the airport. You will find also plenty of rental companies in a city, especially close to the train stations. But based on my experience, you tend to get better prices when you rent a car at the airport and not in the center of the city. For example, in Munich, there are many rental companies around the Victoria Market, right in the center, Marienplatz, or the Hauptbahnhof, the central stations, but they tend to be 1.5 to twice more expensive than the ones that you rent at the airport. What car rental company would I suggest? Well, it's always hard to give a name. Typically, the global providers like Sixt, Avis, Hertz have newer and more modern cars, but they come a little bit more expensive than the ones provided from the local operators, where they tend to be older, but still with a good maintenance. In the last 5 years, I've been using a comparison website, basically an Airbnb of cars, where all of the operators are rated between 5 and 10 based on the user's feedback, like myself. I usually fit between 8 and 10, and in this way, I'm pretty sure that all of the rental companies in this range provide a good quality of service. I'm going to put a link to this comparison website in the video description. Now let me give you a quick and important suggestion. Book your car, doesn't matter where, as early as possible, because you will get better price and also a wider selection of cars. Another useful tip is that you better book a diesel engine car if you plan to have a long itinerary through Germany, because typically diesel is less expensive than petrol. Now let's get to an important subject, which is insurance. Whenever you rent a car, the third-party liabilities are always included by law, so you don't need to worry about that. And honestly, most companies nowadays will provide the car also with a collision damage waiver, also called loss damage waiver, which covers also damage to the rented car, but typically they have a deductible between 2,000–3,000 euros and 5,000 euros. I personally suggest also to do a zero excess insurance or full insurance, which is gonna cover also this excess of 3,000 to 5,000 euros, because a small scratch can even cost you 300 to 500 euros, which would be a really bad surprise when you take the car back to the rental company. Now, the good news is that sometimes this zero excess insurance is actually included into your credit card travel insurance, and possibly you're already covered up at no extra cost. You can also do it at the counter with a provider, and this is going to cost you between 20 and 50 euro per day. I personally do it on that comparison website I mentioned before, and over there it costs just between 8 and 10 euros per day, which is absolutely a bargain and such a peace of mind for my trip. By the way, have you already rented a car here in Germany? If you did, put in the comment what was your experience. I'm really curious. Now, you may already know that there is no speed limit on the highway, the famous German Autobahn, which is probably the most unique rule you find here in Germany. But just be aware that the speed limits may change actually based on the traffic and the road work too. So you can go from a section of no speed limit to a section to 90 km/h. And that's in a matter of few hundred meters. So watch out for all the speed limits because they do check them all through Germany. I got caught once driving just 7 kilometers above the speed limit on a highway, and there was an automatic speed check. Now the fine was not that much, just 30 euros for that. But then the rental company added another 60 euros for the admin. Now the great thing about the German Autobahn, there is no toll. You don't need to pay for the Autobahn, not even a vignette. The pass that you need to pay in other nearby countries like Switzerland and Austria. Now let's go to parking, which is pretty straightforward once you are in the countryside or in the small towns, but can be quite challenging in the big cities. Some of them have also the blue zone, which are the areas or the side of the street where only the residents can park, and you should avoid that area because there are heavy fines. Everywhere else, usually you have to pay for the ticket at the parking meter, or you can use one of the many apps available in Germany for parking. The last option, especially if you visit the historical part of the city, is to leave the car in a multi-level parking garage, which costs between 3 and 5 euros per hour, or less if you take a day ticket. You will find petrol stations literally everywhere in Germany, and they do have both diesel and benzene, the German word for petrol. Now let me give you a couple of good tips to spend less in petrol. Usually the petrol station nearby the supermarkets are the cheapest options that you can find around. And the second tip is to use Google Maps in the area where you are. Just look for petrol or gas stations and you will get all of them and marking them up with the price of the petrol, so you can drive to the cheapest local provider. So how is traffic and how do the local drive? Well, the German drivers are so disciplined. So personally, I never found any stress driving around Germany. For example, in the Autobahn, they typically drive on the right side unless they overtake. And so you should do too. Traffic can be heavy in the cities, especially at peak office hours. And on Friday afternoon, when everybody tends to go either to the mountains or to the lakes or to the sea. Once you avoid that peak time, honestly, driving around is pretty easy going. I usually dedicate a full section to the scams whenever I do a video about renting cars. But this section is pretty small here for Germany because personally I never experienced scams and I never heard of any either. But because of my experience in different countries, I always anyway take photos and videos of both the interior and the exterior of the car whenever I pick up the car and I drop off the car. Because if there is any issue later on, I can always document the status of the car and I can show that a possible damage was not caused by me. And this is what I usually suggest anyway, because making a photo with mobile doesn't cost that much and it takes only 1 or 2 minutes. And this is pretty much it about this video on renting a car in Germany. Remember of course to subscribe to the channel, put a like on the video if you appreciated all of my suggestions, and I see you in the next video.